Hi there, and welcome. If you are watching this, most likely you are a senior at the Governor's School at Innovation Park. It is your second semester. This is not going to get any easier. We will be teaching you how to survive anatomy and physiology. Make sure your heart is beating, and don't forget to breathe. Rid yourself of parasites and pathogens from the first semester. It's time for anatomy and physiology. Yo! Hold up! What is anatomy and physiology? By definition, anatomy is the study of internal and external structure. Physiology is the study of how living organisms perform the various functions of life. Okay, we all knew that. I bet you are more curious regarding what will be expected in class. The class is generally divided into 4 general sections: the integumentary system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the nervous system. From there, you go further into each section. For example, the nervous system is divided into fundamentals of the nervous system, central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system and reflex activity, and the autonomic nervous system. Doesn't sound too scary now, but listen and look at this.
First up, in anatomy and physiology, we observe the outermost organ, skin, that wonderful bunch of tissues that work so hard to protect the fragile human race from the harsh elements and nasty pathogens. Now, the various organs in the body are composed of several different types of tissues, which will be necessary to know. But we are going to focus on epithelial and connective tissue. Even though skin all looks like one big covering, it is actually divided into 2 parts that are continually regenerating, so your skin is basically a Time Lord. The epidermis and the dermis. Here are the different layers of each. For the epidermis, there's the stratum corneum, stratum lucidum, only in thick skin like heels, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and stratum basal. There are plenty of diagrams online and in the textbook that can give you more in-depth information, which you will need. The dermis is divided into only 2 layers, papillary and reticular, and is made of strong, flexible connective tissue. The papillary layer contains areolar connective tissue with collagen and elastic fibers with blood vessels. The reticular layer makes up 80%, 80, that's how much it is, of the dermis and is made of collagen fibers that provide strength and resiliency. Elastic fibers allow the skin its stretchable and recoilable characteristics, much like a rubber band, hence its name, elastic. Fun note, epidermal ridges form the friction ridges that are known to us as fingerprints. They are found on the top of the deeper dermal papillary ridges and are unique to every single person. Moving on to more connective tissue, as strange as that may sound, let's delve into what gives the body its structure, helps us move, and helps prevent damage to vital organs. Bones. To be or not to be, the question is really what the different types of bones are. Flat, just like the name says, found in the skull and sternum. Sesamoid, embedded in tendons like the patella. Long, which are longer than they are wide, these make up most of the bones in the body. Short, which are cube-shaped bones, found mostly in the wrist and ankle. And irregular, they don't really fit in anywhere due to their complicated shapes, such as vertebrae. Something else you'll want to remember is that even though all the bumps and ridges on a bone all feel the same, there are different names depending on what they are and what their structures and functions are. These include the tuberosity, crest, trochanter, line, tubercle, epicondyle, spine, and process. A helpful trick to remember all of these is to find them on your own body. People remember things better if they relate back to themselves. Aren't we so self-centered?
There are like 3 types of cartilage tissue that help provide protection and strength to the bones. The first type of cartilage are described as hyaline cartilages. Now these are the most abundant type of cartilage within the human body. They can provide support and flexibility with the joints.
Oh, it's just flexibility. We love joints, man.
Hyaline cartilage can be found in places such as in between the rib cage and the sternum,
Audacious.
the carpals, and the elbow. The body also contains elastic cartilage, which is most of the same functions of hyaline cartilage.
Sticks.
but it's comprised of elastic fibers. This can be found in the structure of the external ear and the epiglottis.
That's my favorite kind of glottis.
Lastly, the third type of cartilage is the fibrocartilage, which is cartilage created with collagen fibers. This allows it to have greater tensile strength than elastic and hyaline cartilage.
Dudical.
After going into extreme detail on tissues and bones, you will learn about muscles. Muscles are divided into microscopic and macroscopic components. The microscopic components of muscles include differentiation of skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle. You'll know that skeletal and cardiac muscles are striated, while smooth is not. From there, you'll learn more details about skeletal muscles, such as the connective tissue sheaths of skeletal muscles, or the epimysium, the outermost layer, the perimysium, the middle layer, and the endomysium, the inner layer. Zoom in and you'll learn the sarcomere is a contractile unit of a muscle fiber, and the sarcomere has Z-disc, H zones, M-line, and myosin and axon filaments. Scared yet? Non-acetylcholine. This is very important neurotransmitter. It is the key in the neurotransmitter junction that allows for contraction of skeletal muscles. It will later come back in the nervous system. After this microscopic detail, you get to memorize this list of muscles. By the end of the year, you'll be able to say with confidence that the sternocleidomastoid is the major head of the flexor, and the rhomboid major and minor retracts the scapula, and gastrocnemius, and just a long word for the calf muscle. Now let's start on the nervous system. The nervous system is needed in the body in order to send information between the brain and the body. The nervous system has three main functions: sensory input, integration, and motor output. The sensory receptors are used to receive information from an external stimulus and to send signals down an axon terminal once the stimulus is received. The sensory receptors can be classified via the extoreceptors, the interoceptors, the proprioceptors, or via stimulus type as the mechanoreceptors, the thermoreceptors, the photoreceptors, chemoreceptors, or nociceptors. The nervous system is separated into two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is the integrating and command center of the nervous system and consists of the brain and the spinal cord. It intercepts the sensory input and dictates motor responses based on reflexes, current conditions, and past experience. The peripheral nervous system is the part of the nervous system outside of the central nervous system and consists mainly of nerve cells that extend from the brain and the spinal cord. These nerves serve as the communication lines that link the central nervous system with the rest of the body. The peripheral nervous system is separated into the sensory subdivision and the motor subdivision. The sensory subdivision conveys impulses from the receptors around the body and transmits them into the central nervous system. This keeps the central nervous system constantly informed of what's happening inside and outside the body. The motor subdivision transmits impulses from the central nervous system to the effector glands, such as the muscles. The muscle subdivision is divided into the somatic, which involves voluntary movement, or the autonomic, which involves involuntary movement. The autonomic nervous system also has two functional subdivisions, the sympathetic division and the parasympathetic division. These two divisions work in opposition of each other. What one subdivision stimulates, the other inhibits.
Okay, that was a lot of material. That was just a highlight of items. There is much more that couldn't even be mentioned due to limits on the length of the video, because who wants a long video? You could spend the entire semester trying, or you could follow these tips to ease your lives. Here are 4 tips to make your life bearable in A&T. Tips don't lie. Tip number 1 is going to seem glaringly obvious, but is one which many overlook or take for granted. Read your textbook. It is chock full of knowledge and is extremely helpful. We promise the book isn't too boring and doesn't ramble on. But don't just read the book, be the book. Assert your dominant energy over the book. Take notes, even if it's just in sections you are unsure about. For you couch potatoes, you can find notes already done for you online. There really is no excuse to not have notes. You also have PowerPoints to you on Blackboard you can use as notes, so don't be lazy. Tip numero 2. Use the review questions and answer them before class starts. Miss Romano is going to discuss them anyways, and it would help for you to know the answer to what she's going to ask. You'll be ahead and have a one-up, knowing which items are most important. If nothing else, at least go over the PowerPoints and record any questions you have. Tip number 3 from a study group. It helps seal in what you're supposed to learn if you read it and discuss it. One of the best ways to learn material is to be able to teach it to someone else. But be careful that you don't just hang out, but actually crack open your laptop and get down to business. Tip number 4. Use outside resources. As good as the textbook is, some concepts aren't as easy to grasp without a video or some other material to study. We recommend videos like those from Crash Course and Susanna Heinz, or online games like this one for muscles. Finally, dudes, remember that bio is life. So what's a pun? No actual voices were used in the making of this video.